Hey everyone, this is Fran from the 5-Minute Modeler and welcome back. In these videos I provide trains, tips, and tricks for model railroaders that will inspire you in your modeling journey, whether you're a beginner or a more experienced modeler. While I currently model in N scale, I've also modeled in HO, and many of the methods I use transfer easily to other scales. In today's video, I'm kicking off a series where I'll be building the Mackinaw City rail docks for my N scale layout. This rather unique and rarely modeled feature will add great visual interest as well as some operational challenges that I'm looking forward to. We'll start with the framing of the module, the building of the scenery base, laying of track, weathering, adding scenic elements, creating water, and ultimately demonstrating how I will operate this. This project has been on my to-do list for over 20 years and I'm finally diving in. Follow along with me as I build this out and you'll see the methods I use to make this module. While you may never build a dock scene, this video will provide a number of methods I use that will help you in your future modeling. Mackinaw City, located at the tip of Michigan's Lower Peninsula, is the main hub for ferry transportation to St. Ignace and Mackinac Island, an island where cars are prohibited. Only horse-drawn carriages and bicycles are permitted. But let's talk about trains. In addition to ferry boats for passengers, railcar ferries operated across the Straits of Mackinac for over 100 years, transporting rail cars, passengers, and mail to the Upper Peninsula. 3 railroads formed the Mackinac Transportation Company to move rail cars and their shipments between the Lower and Upper Peninsulas of Michigan. The ferry that I'm modeling, Chief Wawadam, ran from 1911 until its retirement in 1984. And it was the last coal-burning ferry on the Great Lakes. It also served as an icebreaker during the winters. The biggest obstacle in starting this project was the lack of available models of the Chief Wawadam or something similar and limited space. I chat with my friend Tom in early 2024 encouraged me to build it myself. I knew I wouldn't be able to make the exact replica, but that wasn't the goal. I just needed a ship that closely resembled the Chief to add another switching job to my layout. I built the ship using foam core and styrene, opting for selective compression to fit it into the available space. The original ship held 26 cars, but I shortened it to hold 8 to 10 cars and also reduced the width from 3 tracks to 2, making it more manageable for my layout. You can check out an earlier video I did on the ship build here. Next, I started building the extension module for the docks. This 1x4 foot module will connect to my South Grand Rapids section, even though Mackinaw City is actually further north. I may also operate it as a standalone module as cars could be moved to and from the module by hand. The tools I used for building this included my miter saw, my electric drill, drywall screws, a utility knife, and caulk. Most of the materials I had laying around my house. I constructed the frame using 1x3 lumber for the sides and 1x4s for the ends, then braced it with 1x2s for support. I normally would have used 1x3s around the entire thing, but I didn't have any handy, so I used the 1x2s. I pre-drilled holes, then used 2-inch drywall screws to secure the pieces. I didn't use glue, though one could if they chose. After ensuring everything was square and level, I cut a 1 foot by 4 foot section of foam from a sheet of 1-inch thick foam insulation with the utility knife. My knife doesn't cut fully through the foam, but after I made 3 passes with the knife, I was able to snap the foam along the line, then using the knife to cut the rest of the way through. I glued the foam to the frame using builder's caulk, which gave me plenty of time for adjustments. I purposely didn't use a plywood top, as in my experience, N-scale trains and scenery don't weigh that much and don't require the additional support. I find that some modelers in N-scale tend to build their benchwork much stronger than needed, using 2x4s, 1x4s, and 3/4 inch plywood. That creates a much heavier module than needed, especially ones that aren't going to be moved frequently. The prototype uses a dynamic connecting bridge to allow adjustments due to the various water level changes on the Great Lakes. I scratch built the bridge using styrene, and I used wood groove siding for the platform. The prototype platform used what appears to be 12 by 12 timbers. I didn't want to spend time building it board by board, so I used wood siding with approximately that width of a groove. I then painted the bridge girders a flat black from a spray can. I weathered the wooden platform using chalks. I couldn't find any scale drawings of the bridge tower, though I did have pictures of it from different angles. Using these photos, I first drew out a plan, adjusting measurements as I went. Once satisfied, I used the drawings as a guide to build out the two towers. The tower was constructed entirely of strip wood, which I stained with a dark wood stain and glued with Eileen's glue. The bridge also included two cylindrical weights, likely concrete, that were used to level the bridge, though I'm not sure exactly how. I'm in the process of modeling those and will show how I did that in a future episode. I also needed storage tracks for cars coming off and going onto the ship, as well as the ability to switch cars. The prototype had two tracks that paralleled the ship's dock and jutted out into the peninsula, so I planned for that as well. The ship will only hold about 8 to 10 cars, so I made sure to include at least that much storage space. I sketched out the track layout, then created a paper template on newsprint to plan the landforms and track placement. This helped me to better visualize the various spacing issues I was facing. Using the template as a guide, I was able to lay out the foam pieces to match. I was eager to try out my Woodland Scenics foam cutter, but after my first piece, the wire broke. Words of wisdom? Don't just read the instructions, check out a few YouTube videos. I learned that the heat, not the wire itself, does the cutting. Going very slow made the process much cleaner and easier. Once the foam pieces were cut, I used a handheld rasp to shape the contours. I wasn't going for perfection since the foam would eventually be covered with plaster and other scenery materials, and I could always modify it later if needed. I used builder's caulk, usually the cheapest kind, to attach the foam piece to the layout and weighted them down to ensure a secure bond. You can see that I used a variety of materials to weight down the foam. I found granite samples from the local big box hardware store really work well. I only had 3, so I used boxes of rocks as well as some heavy tools. So this is the first step in creating the landforms and track areas that will make up the Mackinaw City rail docks. So that's it for this episode. In the next part of the series, I'll continue working on the module and provide more updates. Be sure to subscribe and come back in about a week to see my progress. Thanks again for watching. Have a great week.